So I'm sure I won't get this all in one take. That's okay. Um, a little bit of background on the movies that I've made. The long ago, about goes back to 2010, I think. So now, 14 years ago, I had a small number of the recording of the 8 millimeter recordings, our family recordings, digitized. Well, not really digitized, but made into onto a hard drive. And by hook or crook, the 8 millimeter tapes did survive the fire. They actually were stored somewhere else, uh, and but the only copy of the digital recordings was on an old Mac, and that Mac did also survive the fire. So taking those old digital recordings and converting them and then putting them into iMovie and making some movies out of them was what I thought I would do. Now, that was only 7 tapes, so I want to go back a little bit in history. In the original little 8 millimeter movie cameras, I think the movie, the length of the film would have been about 2.5 minutes, maybe 3 minutes. And so my father would get all of that stuff developed, and then he would use a little splicing machine, and he would go by, he could go through and view the frames and roll it back and forth and cut and splice. And from that, he eventually produced reels of film that were about 15 minutes long. And those reels would be kind of previewed with the family. It was a big thing. We'd all get together and have food or whatever, and watch our movies from the summer before. And sometimes we'd watch from previous years as well. I inherited all of that. All of Dad's slides were destroyed in the fire. But again, the copies of the slides, the scanned copies, were on that Macintosh, together with the converted 8 millimeter video. So I'm also going to make a movie out of the slides. That's a little more complicated and a little bit more editing. I thought about doing a bunch of voiceover. Instead, I'm just going to do a kind of static intro for each of the 2 movies. I divided it into, for this set of, sorry for my voice, for this set of films, a couple of things. The first set is the first 4 of the 7. The second set is the latter 3. You'll see the Airstream trailer in the latter 3, and in the previous 4, if I've done it right, you won't see the Airstream trailer. That means they're roughly chronological, with the first movie being occurring before the second, if I've done my editing correctly. Much of it's self-explanatory. At first you wonder what they took in a picture of, and then eventually they pan over and you see a picture of a national monument, entering a national monument or something like that. It tells you a little bit about where they were, where the family was at that time. There's some pretty interesting things. I'll also be creating a sort of not really a bloopers reel, a highlights reel would be a better term. So from each of these, I will create 1 or more highlights reels. And if you watch all of this, then you will see that those highlight reels might be very interesting as well. So I hope you enjoy the video, and actually I got kind of all the way through and said everything I thought I wanted to say. Good luck, and enjoy the video. It's worth mentioning that there's a lot more fodder in terms of movies that can still be converted. They're very brittle now, those old 8 millimeter films, but this was a metal canister with 7 of these movies, each of those in a little metal canister. And there are maybe another 10 or 15 um, canisters that have not been digitized. I have those canisters. There is also an audio tape that has not been digitized. That would be a 2-track audio tape that's in there. In addition, my mother always wrote little notes, and those were in the cans. Some of those got lost over time. And if I had those notes, I don't really know where that steel box is right today of those 8mm films. It's in storage somewhere. But if I could, I would have got that out and dug out those notes and included it in the video. Again, just another little detail. The camera starts rolling, and that's yours truly standing next to the water wagon there. And then I'll just real quick introduce a couple of the other people. That's my older brother Cameron, who we called Cam. And those are miscellaneous people that probably are unrelated to us. Generally, it was my mother running the movie cameras, so that must be my father from the back side. And I'm not sure. That was me and Kay and Cameron playing on the equipment there. And that's Sue off to the side, kind of a little more adult, obviously the oldest of us anyway at that point. Or at any point. Apparently we were on some dirt roads. I don't actually recall that part, but this was our Death Valley trip. That must be us. And that's all the 4 kids right there. So Sue's the oldest, then Cameron, then Kay, and then lastly myself. This is interesting. I don't know what year this is, but this would be one of the early trips that we took to Lassen. I understand from my parents telling me this was not the first one, so I was only a year or two old in the first trip. But this is a camping trip, so the family arrives at Lassen in a typical station wagon of the era, and you'll see that some campgrounds and such that are not there any longer, probably for the best, but things have moved on. That's my mom in the distance there, and the family walking to Bumpus Hill. I've done that hike countless times even now since then. This is hiking to Cinder Cone. That's Snag Lake, or Butte Lake right there rather, excuse me. And on the way up there, there's used to be a crystal spring coming out of the lava, and there was a tin cup there, and everybody in the planet used to share that cup. That was us, we all drank from that spring. That dried up years later, but I still often will visit that spot. That's climbing Cinder Cone, as everyone used to say, 2 feet forward, 1 foot back. So except for these movies, I would not remember this. This is obviously we got up on top of Cinder Cone, and I can't believe it. I don't recall there ever seeing a helicopter up there, but there was one, and we even stood next to it. But I have no recollection of that other than watching these movies. From Lassen, there's a hard cut to the swimming pool at the back of the house. Obviously cut to a different reel. Remember, those are like 2.5 minute reels that get cut together. And I'm not much of a film editor, so I didn't take time to do things better. But we used to love to swim back there. We had it was a little fenced-in area, and yeah, there were countless hours spent back there. By this time we had transitioned and we were out of the tent and into a small travel trailer. It was a very small trailer, I think about 16 feet. It was a Shasta, but we thought it was a big upgrade at the time. Bike riding in our backyard, basically. That's what the house used to look like. That's me on a tricycle. Yeah, a tricycle. I didn't learn to ride a bike for many, many years after that. And I used to fall down on that damn trike all the time. That would be my brother Cameron. And this was some sort of big party. That's I believe that's Sue and my mom. Yeah, that's me. Different party for some reason, I'm not sure what. Yeah, so this is Sea Cliff Beach. You can see people all the way out to the bow of that's the SS Palo Alto. People used to go out there and go fishing. And that's my dad and my brother and NK, and anyway, the family screwing around at the beach, Sea Cliff Beach. And that ship's not really there any longer. It finally got beat up. This is my dog Rocky when he was a puppy. I can't believe that this was here. Yeah, he grew up into a great big boy and came to a sad end, but anyway, that's the way things were back then around our place. But that's where I grew up, and that's the patio before it was screened in. Later on, it had a fiberglass roof over it, and it was screened in porch. And I think they were taking me or somebody, taking me to go learn how to go swimming. We had a pool by then. They didn't want me to, you know what. Film editing will always get you wrong. This is the construction in the back of the house when they were putting our swimming pool in. So I guess maybe they were teaching me how to swim before they put the pool in. Anyway, I don't remember. Pictures of people are so much more pleasing. That's my brother, Cameron, and in the distance, the collie. Oh, the collie's name was Skippy, and that's my dog, Rocky, in the background there. I always thought of him as my dog. That's Kay and Dad, and yours truly. And it looks like a cake. That's Kay. And yeah, that's our backyard. The pool is in there, it looks like, because there's a fence around it and everything. Dad mowing the lawn. God knows I wasn't going to mow it. The whole place looked pretty good. I remember that. So here's Skippy, our collie, out in front of the house, looking out in the front yard. Dogs ran free back then, those days. That's Kay with Skippy. It's probably Sue getting a ball down off the roof, and you have an old car in there. Of course, it wasn't old at the time. We're old now. My brother Cameron swimming underwater and coming up.